to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
Today's guest is Philippe Til. Philippe is a personal trainer and fitness entrepreneur who draws his approach from a lifetime of experience and education across multiple continents in time-tested methodologies and systems. Philippe's credentials include being a certified instructor through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, a StrongFirst Kettlebell Instructor, primitive movement patterns, and the pose method of running through WildFitness in the UK. He is also Indian Club certified under Dr. Ed Thomas and Brett Jones, FMS Certified, and a 2-time black belt holder in the martial arts of Ninjustsu and Shotokan. In today's episode, we discuss Philippe's journey into fitness, his work in translating George Hebert's The Natural Method, and what it means to always be ready when it comes to fitness. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Philippe, thank you for coming on this afternoon and speaking on the Leo Training Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's kick things off and have you talk a little bit about your background in the health and fitness industry and what you're doing currently today.
Okay, so this is a journey that dates back to probably over 30 years ago when I started in martial arts. This is actually where I think I became of age in terms of fitness and things like that. It's just all about movement. You know, I was a tall, skinny, gangly kid, not very coordinated. I was great at swimming, but I wasn't enjoying it. I was in gymnastics, a little too tall for gymnastics. And then I finally joined martial arts, and that was my thing, right? And I always had a passion for fitness, but didn't start to make, I don't want to say a living out of it. I had it as a hobby since about 1997, where I was teaching martial arts classes, and I had a couple of clients, which was mostly calisthenics. I had no education on training whatsoever, just whatever I could pick up on, naturally speaking. And this actually will tie into the books, Natural Method series from George Hebert, because there's actually an influence from physical education, the way I grew up in France, which was influenced by that, and I didn't know it at the time. I always like to use the analogy of when you go to China, you don't call it Chinese food, you call it food. The same way I was in France, the physical education I was receiving was all natural method based, right? So I'll touch upon that a little bit more, in a second. In 1998, I received my second black belt. I had a first black belt, 1997, I'm sorry, I got my second black belt, and I was in Ninjustsu. And before that, I have a black belt in Shotokan, which I acquired in France in 1991. I became a professional trainer full-time, fully fledged around 2003. That's when I had no other, moonlighting gigs. It was just a training. It started off in a box gym for about 3 years at Bally's Total Fitness. Then I opened up my own little warehouse, boutique studio. And I've been doing that full-time ever since. I'm transitioning now into different aspects of training. I still will keep a small core group of trainers. But as you grow into your fitness business, and we all are striving for more and expanding ourselves more, and while I don't want to continue with just trading my hours for dollars, more towards passive income, that's where the books are coming from. That's where the new aggregate website is going to be coming from, the new meta training system. And it's going to be revolving on my end around the natural method and such things. But I will also be bringing on other trainers who have their own contribution to fitness with aligned philosophies, like Ron Jones of the Lean Berets, or hopefully, Peter Lakatosh with the Ground Force Method. My friend James Neidlinger, who's got a vast knowledge in martial arts and many other things. I've got a lot of people that I'm working with and, affiliating with, whether it's, wellness products or apparel brands like 511 Tactical, for instance, or Primal Life Organics or anything like that. So that's where the business is shifting, multiple streams of income, multiple interests, all revolving around the philosophy of natural movement, primitive movement patterns, all around wellness and fitness. And I'm going to kind of precede or preempt one of your questions. How did the whole natural method or practical guide to physical education come about? I was having a conversation with Dr. Ed Thomas. I had been one of his assistants and team leaders during a certification at Cal State University Northridge, CSUN. And he had told me that no one had really done a proper translation or presentation of Georges Hebert's work. Now, Georges Hebert was a former French naval officer, and he had come up with the method, the natural method, when he was stationed in Africa at some point. And this came out of a combination of two events that came up at the same time. One, I think, was around the rescue of a village because there was some volcanic eruption, and you realize you got to be strong to be useful, which is a very popular motto that you hear around the natural method. And the second thing, he was just observing the indigenous population, who was very naturally athletic and physical, whether, it's, the local, again, indigenous villagers, things that I've witnessed myself when I went on a honeymoon in Africa and I saw the Maasai warriors who are just very, long and lean and very adapted to their environment. It made them realize you got to be able to do all the basic things, which are, run, walk, obviously, but run, walk, jump, fight, swim, lift, throw, climb, all of these things. And of course, there's the element, the culmination, which should be play-based or to be able to do manual labor. So that's his approach, Everything we tend to do or everything we tend to market is going to be either, get strong or get big and muscular or lose weight. Those are all just really micro goals. There's little specializations. He's more after the entire process of all around fitness. You got to be able to do it all at any moment's notice, I know of at least two people who use the motto, always be ready in their business. There's, again, the brand 511 Tactical. And there's also my friend, Adam Friedman in Venice Beach. He's got a brand called, Advanced Athletics, and he trains a lot of athletes and things like that. And again, he always says, always be ready. And that's what we're all after. Pavel would talk about in his workshops, we always got to be ready, I don't know if you remember the anecdote he likes to tell during workshops about, the Navy SEALs having to be put through their PT test and they all ace it. And the next day their drill sergeant puts them through again and they all fail. Like, well, guys, you're a bunch of dead guys in the field. You got to be able to do it every day. Right. So.
Wow. So that was a ton of information. You got a amazing amount of stuff going on right now. Quite the entrepreneur.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
Once you get bit by the bug, it's incurable. You can't.
That's right. Yeah.
I also call it, what was I thinking-itis.
So I jotted down a couple of things there. And you launched right into the natural method, which is fantastic. So you have taken the time, and this is no small endeavor on your part. It is clearly something, a multiple year project of translating Georges Hebert's work, the method naturale, into English, and also sort of making it applicable to an understanding of modern times.
Exactly. Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about what made you decide, one, you wanted to take on a project of that size, and two, what has that process been like?
So, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Ed Thomas had mentioned that to me, and there is another translation which is much abridged that's available out there in the universe. It's not that I don't want to plug it; I just don't remember who did it, honestly, nor do I care. But it's the reason is because the guys who translated are French, and I'm French too. However, I've been living in the United States for 24 years now. And I live in the fitness field. So this is, without sounding not humble, this is a good combination, and these guys did it. And I've read some of it from whatever people tried to send me, hey, there's something out there. Like, it wasn't greatly translated. They cut out a lot of the stuff, which they cut out a lot of the essence of what Georges Hebert likes to do. He's very big on rote. He's very big on repetition. So in my translation work, there's times where honestly I was copying and pasting instructions over and over, and then doing the minor adaptation based on the movement or the position or things like that. Because as an educator, you know that repetition is the key to change, right? I mean, whether it's speaking and learning a new language, whether it's throwing a punch or a kick in a martial arts class, you do that over and over again. And the pedagogical and didactic aspect of the method is huge in the sense that he likes to create student teachers. If I were to put 100 people in a room right now, and I was teaching a workshop with 100 people, we eventually would be mirroring one another, where you stand in front of me and I cue you, you cue me. Through observation, you learn how to teach because it's very common sense, right? It's not such micro minutia in the movements that you can't teach me or you can't spot a mistake, you know. Have you ever seen a movie where you say, oh, this is such bad acting, right? You can tell whether something is good or not without having a master in fine arts and acting or anything like that from Juilliard or any other school, right? You can tell whether something is authentic or not. It's the same thing with movement. You can tell sometimes when something looks good or bad. I mean, we see enough YouTube videos of like failed workouts at the gym. Well, why don't we focus on the process? Why don't we focus on fixing instead of, making fun of? So going back without digressing too much, the other reason I took it on is because, again, I wanted to stay as true to the author as possible, even in his wording and even in his the tone that he undertakes. Sometimes it seems a little bit redundant, but there's a reason for it because that's how you ingrain and memorize them through rote and repetition. And then what I've also wanted to do is present the source, because there's other movements out there that claim also in a form of natural training or things like that. And I think they've done a phenomenal job at interpreting it their own way. And not that they're taking credit for it, which they are. It's more about presenting where this comes from. Hebert himself credits people before him. He credits even other cultures saying, hey, look, I'm not going to focus too much on how to do a squat, because culturally some people are going to squat like this, some people are going to squat like that. Just do what you can do. I don't know if you even remember, there was an article posted about a year and a half ago on about how to squat. And everything that we were doing up until that point was so rigid. You have to have your feet parallel. You can't exceed this. You can't do that. And then, no, we all have a different structure with different movement in our hips. If you can load the movement, if you can do the movement for years, decades without experiencing any kind of pain, you can keep getting better, then that's how you squat, right? There's no hard set rule on that. So it was interesting for me to just present that. Now, what I'm doing with it, because it was such a huge undertaking, that Practical Guide to Physical Education is over 600 pages.
Wow.
And so to translate that, to write that, to then just caption and do the layout is a very lengthy process. But I wanted to keep interest going. So it's almost like an iTunes model of you can buy the song or you can buy the whole album, right? And so I chose to release chapters as your individual songs. Now, it's not so much chapters, are sections. He divides the book in, there's 5 major sections. The first section was essentially the understanding, the explanation, the exposition of the method, how you conduct a model lesson, what it should contain, how to establish baselines, how to score so you can have some form of metrics and measure of your progress, where you should be, how to be competitive, how to, maintain a certain level of hygiene. And what he calls a hygienic training is not what we call, it's not taking a shower and smelling fresh. It's more about working out shirtless or minimal clothing so your pores can breathe, so you can eliminate, everything through the sweating process, something we try to limit so much with our moisture wicking apparel, and I'm all for progress, but I'm also all for what's natural. And again, natural, it's not natural to put on a deodorant that has no aluminum in it that enters your pores and prevents you from sweating. Sweating is a natural process. It's okay to have a deodorant so you don't stink up the room, but you should be able to sweat, right? So that's another element of naturality behind it. So you've got what he calls the basic educational exercises. I renamed it fundamentals so people can get a quicker grasp of it. And that's all of your joint mobility, your warm-ups, your movement patterns, which incidentally you will find whether you're doing a kettlebell snatch, a barbell shoulder press, throwing a kick or a punch, or doing any kind of breathing pattern. Those are just all the joints in all the directions, all the angles, multiplanar movement. And then you go into what he calls functional or more utilitarian. And, the term functional has been misused so many times by people, standing on the Bosu ball doing, rotational twist with a cable connected to a pole or something like that. I'm like, is that really functional? No. I mean, functional is running, jumping, fighting, swimming, rescuing, throwing, and being able to throw from both sides equally, so you don't throw like a girl, like people say, which can be offensive to women. I mean, so there's all these aspects, and that's truly what's functional. And lifting, weight training, is only one aspect. So when we train and we limit ourselves to just our deadlifts, our bench pressing, and our pull-ups, well, you've got a couple of lifting moves. You got a fundamental move. He actually categorizes pull-ups as being a fundamental move because that's something you should be able to do, right? But we forget about all the other aspects of wellness and fitness, and then we become imprisoned in the said principle, specific adaptations to impose demand. So he's okay with being a jack of all trades, rather than being and it's not like he's saying be a master of none. It's like, no, that's specialization. Horseback riding, surfing, tennis, whatever you want to do. That's for beyond. And I'm going to go, snowboarding this weekend. And I'm conditioned all year long for snowboarding, but too many people go snowboarding just on the weekend or go playing basketball on the weekend without any prep during the week. And that's how you get injured. That's how you get hurt.
Right.
I always tell somebody who's going to go skiing, the slope is just as steep for the beginner as it is for the Olympic skier. You still have to prepare to go at it. It's not like playing Yahtzee and you just can go right into it. You still need to warm up and prepare for it. Otherwise, you're going to be sore or hurt or whatever. So, my friend Ron Jones liked to talk about the noble purpose, and Hebert touches upon that in the introduction to the entire practical guide by saying you got to be able to be fit for yourself, so you can be, again, useful and assist somebody or do some task, but also so you can be of assistance to your family, your neighborhood, your community, and ultimately your nation. Especially when we're talking about war times. This is a book that's well over 100 years old. That's predating World War I. So, you still had more of a military mentality, and the system was actually tested on over 25,000 students of ages 8 to about 25. And he used various naval academies and military academies because he had willing subjects that he could implement it on. And that system was later on applied to schools, to other military across the world, whether it gathered influences from other local instructors, whether they adapted Georges Hebert, or whether he was aligned philosophically with them at the same time period. All of it is true. There's not just one single aspect.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I mean, you've touched on so many different components there, but the one thing that really kind of jumped out at me is that we sort of tend to either specialize in one activity, or we sort of only pour our time into one area. We only focus on, strength training, but we can't move well, or we only play a sport, we only play that sport and nothing else. And he sort of has very wisely laid out a blueprint to give us, a guide to include strength training, but also to be able to move well from the time that we're, an adolescent all the way to being older.
Oh yeah, and he says, of course, we've always heard that fitness is valid at any age. You can start at 60, but if you start at 8, your 60 is going to look a lot different. Your fitness at 60 is going to look a lot different. Right. And one of the things that I like personally, and just even like in the second book that I released, the fundamentals, while he says that these movements alone are not going to get you in great shape, they'll still give you that mobility, the basics. And, the way I've contributed to it, and I've adapted it a little bit, is when I practice the moves with my clients, I just layer everything. I start with all the arm positions, and then I weave like deep knee bends into it. And then after I weave the deep knee bends into it, maybe I'll go into like trunk flexions or extensions or staggered stances, as we call the slits in the book. And after I've done all of it, where I've gotten the movements down and the combinations down, I go start all over, but now we focus on breathing. And it's a different form of breathing than, for instance, what we've learned in a whole RPC StrongFirst system with the breathing behind the shield, because that's very, much into your diaphragm. It's very, hard style, whereas he wants to fill up your lungs. So it's okay to breathe into your lungs. Don't always breathe into your belly. You want to open up that rib cage and expand that. And interestingly, in the process, while I introduced that last, is because we all more or less know instinctively how to breathe, and if we don't, that's it, it's over. There is still the element of education of breath, and then you bring it back, and maybe you begin the movement. So people ask me, hey, how long is my session last? Well, you can warm up in 5 minutes. You can have it dedicated to about 15 to 25 minutes. You can select certain movements, because let's say your lifting routine this day is going to be comprised of that. Your jumping routine is going to be comprised of, this move. So let's say you have a broad jump and you have a double-handed overhead press, whether you're going to use a sandbag, a barbell, 2 kettlebells, 2 dumbbells, and it's a double overhand press. So you're going to have to mobilize your trunk a little bit differently than if you were just using one arm. You're going to have to maybe create if you're bench pressing that day, it's going to tighten you up a little bit. So maybe you want to open up the rib cage into a different plane of movement. So you don't have to do all the movements. You just have to do what's adaptable and applicable. Another aspect of the method that I really like, it's in the blueprint. What I've done, because I talked about the 5 sections.
Mm-hmm.
So the first section is the exposition, second is the fundamentals, the third is the functional. The fourth is going to be talking about the yearly layout, and the fifth is simply the chart of how you do the training. And he breaks things down into 3 16-week periods. So it brings you to about 48 weeks, but he takes into consideration like a break here and there or a month off and things like that. And it is very seasonal. So when we think of natural and we think of nature, like in California, we don't have much in terms of seasons, but, if I take into the context, where, you have a spring, a summer, a winter,
Mm-hmm.
in Hebert's book, the swimming drills would surface more, around the summertime.
Right.
Where the third 16-week period would revolve a lot more around swimming, and it would involve a lot more play-based work or games or sports activities, anywhere from, soccer, rugby, whatever you want to do it, right? Because you've spent 32 weeks prior to that building that solid foundation, that solid baseline. So in the first 16 weeks, where you're going to start with maybe, jumps, like high jump or long jump with or without momentum, where you're going to work on developing your shoulder press or your snatch or your volley, which is a modified version of the swing. Whether you're going to practice, throwing a light object with one hand, onto a target, you build all those movement patterns, all those skills, and you simply do what we all do, is you load more, or you increase your volume, or you can, increase your skill level. And by the time, again, you reach that third period, you're in good shape. You're fit. You're fit to fight. You're fit to swim. You're fit to do everything. He, as a matter of fact, removes certain elements of the fundamentals. He goes, you know what? By now, you should have it down. And if you don't have it down, you can always revisit. So again, it's a year-long blueprint that you follow, not just year-long, but lifelong. And it's just like a lifestyle.
No, I really love that. I like the concept of always being ready, all around fitness, because that's, life's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. So you have to be ready. And then, that really is so important, because, that is something that carries over to any endeavor, right?
Yep.
So how do you think, using the work of Georges Hebert and the translation that you're putting out there now, how does that benefit people today?
That's a loaded question. What I think it does is, my goal would be to just kind of change the mindset, the outlook that people have on fitness. Again, too many people are only focused on that micro goal, for instance, of weight loss. It's just the biggest, most popular topic of why people go in a gym. And if you look at how fitness marketing is revolving around it, It's 90% marketing, 10% fitness. They will sell you the latest, greatest. They'll sell you promises, and in 90 days, you're going to look like this. And first of all, you're not going to look like that model picture, or you may. But the question is, when you finish those 3 months, are you any better? And when you start, you may look better physically, but you have better skill. Do you have better movement quality? If you know that those popular programs have a 5% completion rate from, if 100 people buy it today, statistics are, I can't quote the source right now, but the statistics are that only about 5% of those people finish it. And can they go right back into that training program for another 3 months, maintain that year round? That percentage drops even more. I remember actually this French comedian who used to make fun of athletes way back in the day. He says, no, the 100-yard sprinter, he's just as intelligent or as dumb at the end of the sprint as he was in the beginning. So, and again, I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody. That was just a joke. But the point is, I'm going to apply it to these 90-day transformation programs. Or like, are you any better after 90 days than you are when you started? You know full well that you're better off improving upon a skill little by little every day until you achieve a certain level of, I don't want to call it mastery, but proficiency. There's a term in French which was always difficult for me to transliterate, which is the term perfection. Hebert always talks about perfectioning, not perfecting, but perfectioning. And it's essentially how, Pavel would say, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you load a pattern or do a certain movement pattern incorrectly, you're not getting better, right? You're making it worse, and you're ingrading that bad pattern. So perfectionnement in French simply means striving to do the movement as best as you can. And when you achieve that level, well, we always say, no one ever achieves perfection. It's not a possible thing because of factors, etc. That's true. But I think the term is a lot more positive and encouraging in French than it is in English, because it can sound a little bit egotistic in English, or it can sound like, who is ever perfect? No. Again, it describes more of your journey rather than the destination. And if you're going to use the words of another great, master, who's amalgamated the best of everything into one style, Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do, he always says, I'm not afraid of the man who threw 1,000 kicks or 1,000 punches, but beware of the man who threw one kick 1,000 times or 10,000 times. So, right. If you're good at that one thing, you're excellent at that one thing. Okay. You still want that variety. And that's why, Bruce Lee he simplified, in ninjutsu, the art of ninja, the art that I trained in, same thing would take from just about every art and would take what works, what doesn't work. And sometimes certain techniques would work well for me because I have flexible wrists and long limbs and I've got good leverage on that. And sometimes I've got bad leverage for other things. I still would learn the things that I'm not good at, and then I would continue perfecting the things that I'm good at. And that's, what we always talk in our training is addressing our weaknesses and imbalances first to build a solid foundation. And so on that level, the method benefits everybody. It also benefits everybody from a fitness and instructor standpoint, because you take the works of a guy like Gray Cook and his corrective and assessment work, or Brett Jones and Dr. Thomas and how they teach Indian clubs, or Pavel with the kettlebell training system. All of these are essentially making up the elements of what Hebert likes to put all together in the end. So in the new website I'm going to be launching, I call it the meta training system. Mm-hmm. Meta as in a second order, higher kind, or metaphysical as in beyond, right? Popular word right now, meta. The idea is to bring all of these philosophies together. It's to have a noise canceling system where you don't have feuding, but you have the simplification and amalgamation and assimilation of all these methods into one. Because we are, again, too narrowly focused into one area. And what's the point of being able to, bottom up press a beast in each hand if you have a 52-inch waist and you can't really outrun, danger or something like that, or you can't fit through a door, or if you don't have the ability to do X, Y, and Z. What's the point of being able to do a back bend and touch your heels with your forehead, backwards if you can't lift a 16-pound kettlebell over your head, I had a client a long time ago kind of joke around because his girlfriend was trying to bring him to a yoga class. She goes, "Hey, you want me to be able to move your fridge, or do you want me to be bendy?" I'm like, well, you can kind of have both, there's my friend Adam Glass is excellent at demonstrating that. He's become very bendy and very flexible and extremely strong at the same time. So you can have it all. Now, while that's on a certain level of extreme of athleticism, I think that the average population would benefit from the natural method because it's extremely accessible. You start where you are. You come into me today, you can be the best martial artist in the world. You can be the strongest powerlifter in the world. You can be the weakest individual on the planet. I will find something for you because I'll start where you are. And we'll start you standing. There's other systems which I can endorse and promote that will have you starting on the ground, start you on the floor. But sometimes I have clients who don't have that luxury because they can't stand up afterwards. So I will spend more time with them. Again, let's start with the arm movements. Start with the shoulders. The glenohumeral joint is one of the most mobile joints in the body. And you know full well that it kind of will send a signal to the rest of your body. We have the crossbanders. I have a tight right shoulder. Maybe my left hip is tight, but you know that just from a postural standpoint, you sit straight, you bring your shoulder blades back, you retract them like we cue, put your shoulders in your back pocket. All what's happening, you're opening up the trunk, you're standing upright, you're getting a little bit of muscle work by bringing that backwards, because then we go back, we slouch. But again, just that little posture, what does it do for us? And do it standing, suddenly you straighten your body, your hips are a little bit more open. It creates that whole trickle-down economics. So I will start you with the basic arm movements. I'm like, okay, we've done the arm movements. Now let's add a little bit of a slight deep knee bend. Squat to what you can do. Get your heels off the ground if you want to. Sit on your heels or squat. Go wide stance if your knees are in pain. Or let's do a little bit of a back extension. Let's do a little bit of back flexion, some rotation, some twisting. And let's add some breathing. Then we can use the same movements and we can use an apparatus, whether it's a suspension device or your dresser or a resistance ball. We can work with gravity or against gravity. So you do the same movement pattern against gravity. You're creating some form of resistance. You're playing with your leverage. You're making it more difficult. Okay, now we're working the muscle. Or you take away resistance, you can go to a deeper range of motion. So now suddenly that weight or that wall or whatever you're using to assist yourself, like for instance, if you were to raise your arm overhead right now, it only goes so far. But now go against the doorway and lean into that doorway with your arm holding on to the door sill. Now you're creating less muscular effort, or you're increasing your range of motion. So again, you play with all these things with the same movement 3 different ways. Your natural baseline with the assistance of the wall to increase your stretch, or against the assistance of the wall, for instance, to increase your muscular recruitment. And again, start where you are. That's where it is,
Yeah, that's great because the accessibility, the entry points are there for anybody, regardless of sort of where they're coming in from, whether they're, an athlete in a specific sport, or like you said, a power lifter, or somebody that's been doing yoga. It's applicable across many, many different disciplines.
Yep.
The other thing I was going to say is I also liked how you're, to me anyway, my take is you're presenting an educational piece in the sense that you're trying to kind of make people aware again, something that we've forgotten, that there's something beyond a 30, 60 or 90 day fitness goal. Yeah. We have health and wellness, and incorporating, a long-term view of it, instead of, that micro goal where you're focused just on sort of the short term.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm I was just working with a client before this podcast who was in Saskatchewan. I'm in California, so we do some remote training. And most of our sessions at this point, because he spent quite a bit of time with me in California before moving for grad school, where I don't spend much time talking about his training other than giving him some cues and some refreshing workouts and things that we do and periodize. But we spend time talking more about the lifestyle. And again, if we remove just that micro focus of, using the weight loss example once again, if you move and you eat well, everything else will take care of itself. If you load your movement, you're going to get stronger, but you have to have the good movement first, right? So you have mobility, you have, muscular development, fountain of youth right there. Breathe well, manage your stress, eat well, obviously. You do all of these things, you will lose weight, you will put on muscle, you will increase your mobility. But to do that specific program of weight loss, there's no such thing as a weight loss program. It's a weight loss lifestyle. I remember reading a long time ago some article on yoga. Oh, if you do yoga, you will lose weight. I'm like, well, let's see how that works. You don't do anything, and you start doing something, and you happen to enjoy yoga. And you're doing the yoga, and you find that, sometimes you can't hold a pose because you're too heavy. And then you are doing something that's good and healthy for you. So maybe you want to eat better. So now you start eating better. And you change your whole lifestyle. But it's not just that yoga thing that made you lose the weight. It's your lifestyle around it. I mean, how many, overweight people do you see running on a treadmill all year long and they don't lose a pound? I recently read something that was very interesting. It's easy to lose 20 pounds. It's easy to lose 30 pounds. But the hardest thing to do is to lose 1 pound in 1 year. And just think about that.
Right. That's a different perspective on it. Yeah. Because it goes back into the lifestyle. It's a mindset. Right.
Yeah,
it's choices.
Exactly.
It's choices.
It's all choices. It's all a mindset. So by bringing something that, the word natural is going to be very, non-threatening. And I don't know if you know who Charlie Hone is, but, he's a kind of motivational speaker. He used to work a lot with Tim Ferriss, and I had the opportunity to run into him at a conference recently, and I talked to him, and we're talking about the whole fitness marketing, right? 90% marketing, 10% fitness, where too often you're being sold on the promise of a future you, but you're being sold right now, and you train with that goal in mind. Now, that's great to have a goal, but if I tell you, go climb Mount Everest right now, how do I do that? You still need to prep for it. Whereas I'm more into the experience today. If you're going to come and I'm going to introduce you to these concepts and you feel great at the end of the session, you're going to want to come back. It's not that I'm trying to sell you on something, just trying to sell you on the idea of feeling good. Not this, I can do this. This feels great. And then you come back the next day. You're focused on the right now feeling good. You're trusting the process. If you feel good and you feel your muscles and this is good for you, well, then you continue. You trust the process. That's where it leads you to that goal. And again, being an all-around good athlete is very important for everything you do in life. I chase my kids, but I also want my parents and my in-laws to continue chasing my active kids into their old age. I want to do that in my old age too. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So you find that quality, you find the movement quality. Now, 20 years from now, I'm not going to be doing muscle ups, but I'll still be doing pull-ups, or I'll still be hanging or inverted rows. I'll still be working on that strength, that mobility. I don't know. The whole point is I'm not limiting myself. And then the culmination, the play-based stuff, whether it's manual labor, playing games, playing sports, it's all an element of that. So let's just not limit ourselves to that. And people ask me sometimes, how do I do a natural method session at the gym? Again, the blueprint, the new book coming out, which, as I said in Hebert's original work, it's just a few pages. I'm turning that in over 300 pages worth of information. Wow. Because I'm taking the charts, I'm adapting them a little bit because now we have equipment that we didn't have 115 years ago. Right. He was using literally tools of various trades, like if you're a welder or you're laying bricks and you need a mold to pour your concrete, he was using those molds as tools. The best example is now we use sandbags. Well, sandbags existed forever. What are kettlebells? They were tools to weigh stuff. They were not tools for training. Well, now we have the kettlebells. We have the techniques with the kettlebells. We have the barbells, the dumbbells. We have the TRXs. We have your cable system. You can use all of these devices, and you can have your session at the gym where you're going to practice maybe the box jump or jumping, for distance, or you're going to practice hopping with a jump rope, or you're going to hit the bag or do some partner training, partner sparring. Again, I've just taken stuff that we all already know, and that's the best part. It's just so familiar to you that you are not, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not claiming I have. I'm giving you everything you already are familiar with. I'm just reorganizing it a little bit more. And the reason it's about 300 pages is because I took a variety of trainers that I respect, that are friends of mine, and we shot them doing all of these moves. And I had to sift through 16 to 20,000 pictures to just narrow it down. And now my photographer, Antje Anders, is doing a phenomenal job at laying down the work. People ask me, when is it coming out? Well, she's a photographer. She's got a great eye. She's not going to put out something that she's not happy with. So I've already seen the layout, and I'm going to be posting on Instagram a few things here and there. So if you want to follow me at Philippe Til on my Instagram, or find me on Facebook. I'm not as good on Twitter. I like Instagram better, but I'll increase my tweets more. But I'll be posting some of these pictures so you can see just the beauty of the layout. I don't want something that just stand out. I want something that, if you're going to buy the book, I want you to go back and reference it. Yes, I'll be providing free PDFs so you can do your own thing. But this is going to be just such a nice book, and we will have all the movements outlined so you can see visually how to do them. And I will hold off probably sometimes on just telling you exactly how to do the movement, because other people have already done the work for me. Again, you want to know how to do the best kettlebell press, just follow Pavel, follow Max Shank, follow all these guys who have done the work. It's about the cross-pollination, the amalgamation. That's why I want to call it this meta training system, an aggregate site where people are going to be bringing their own philosophy, their own training methods. And again, it's already been done. I'm just taking the ingredients and putting them together. If I give you eggs, milk, flour, you're going to make pancakes, I'm going to make crepes. It's going to be all in the proportion, what we're after. But at the end, you have a good meal,
It's beautiful. I love that. And I'm really looking forward to the site Meta Training coming out.
Yep.
Do you have a target date in mind yet? Or
I want to say probably 2-3 months from now is realistic, because again, it's not just me that's involved. I have my web guy who's done a fantastic job. I've got Antje. I've got the other trainers who I'm collecting content from, and for instance, you have your content on rowing. That's really a great platform for that. And I want to tell anybody who's listening right now, if you're philosophically aligned, like with what Ron Jones is doing, what Ed Thomas has been doing, with what Peter Lakatosh is doing with the ground force method, or even if you like, all those bar calisthenics, my friend Brendan Cosso and the World Calisthenics Organization, all of these movements, or stick mobility guys, whatever, I just want to make it a platform for you, for anybody who's just willing to publicize their content. I'm not asking for anything. Maybe just an affiliate fee, or an affiliate if you have. If you don't, I don't care. I want to promote your stuff. This is like T-Nation or Breaking Muscle, but just going back to history, going back to the source, and allowing the people who are either experts by just research and knowledge, or people who have been doing this for years, or people who, like me, have been just digging that information from dusty books, and just releasing it. That's going to be a platform for it.
No, I'm really excited about it. I think one of the things that's so appealing and interesting is the historical tie-in,
Yep.
right? And I remember I had the pleasure of going to the Indian Club workshop this past summer with Dr. Thomas and Brett Jones and Phil Scarito, and Dr. Thomas had said, for us to continue to make progress and move forward, we need to look back at where we came from.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's exactly that. No, I can't say it any better. You're talking about history. The other book that I'm finishing right now, it's it's a women's physical education. And I'm even struggling with the title because there's a French word that doesn't translate quite well in English. So I'm going to have to play around with that. But this is not a book on how to train. It's more about changing the mindset of women in training, knowing, it's great again for women to know where they came from. Whether, you can look at it societally on, the rights to vote, the rights to drive, or, equality in the workplace and things like that. The same thing is important for women to know where they came from in terms of fitness, how they were perceived 100 years ago. People ask me like, why are you writing about corsets? No one wears corsets. Well, there's all these kinds of garments that are just compressing, that are not healthy, but you should know where you came from. You should see how beauty was appreciated in terms of, a woman's trifecta was to be healthy, and to be strong led to being beautiful, more than just physical features. And he also talks about trends. And it's interesting how we see the trends, for instance, with certain Kardashian type celebrities or other stuff right now where you're promoting a certain part of the body, or the other joke in fashion, which is that hold on to your clothes right now for another 20 years. They're going to come back in fashion, right? Hebert, 100 plus years ago, already makes allusion to certain trends that have appeared and reappeared and changed. And he talks about almost conformation of the human body, very much like we do for like cattle or horses or dogs at these tournament of champion shows where you have to have the dog within a specific height, within a specific weight and these colors. And he takes that and extrapolates it to the male and female body, utilizing the examples of Greek statues and showing examples of the female students that he trained using his natural method. And you look at these women, the book is going to have a lot of nudity, I have to warn people. And it's very tasteful. It's, again, his students. And you see how these women 100 plus years ago, they didn't use the latest gizmos. They didn't use the latest supplements. They were eating clean, they were doing the movements, and they had the strong, useful, beautiful body, where he also takes into consideration the length of your limbs and say, look, you may not have been genetically gifted with a perfect structure, but you can make yourself strong, you can make yourself beautiful, you can make yourself healthy. So he embraces everybody, and at the same time will offend everybody because we've forgotten how to think bluntly. We're so politically correct in this day and age that there's times where I'm like, I can't publish this. This scares me to even translate that. Oh my God. But at the same time, my job is just to translate. Let me promote. Now let's see where we came from. And again, that's going to shape the understanding. I seeing those fitness selfies of some, super hot girl pointing at her abs or her butt or something like that. It's not really motivating people. It is more intimidating people, or like, oh, I can never be like that. Here the goal is like, no, come from here and get there. People forget that a high skill started at a first step of no skill. And again, so it's a very historical piece, helps you put into a certain mindset, put things in context. And there's many books that I intend on translating and bringing forth, like the whole code of strength or virile strength, how to be more of a man, the art of manliness kind of thing. That's popular as well. There's a website dedicated to that. People make fun of, poke fun at the whole millennial culture, but, the skinny jeans and beards and things like that. Right. If I'm offending somebody, well, if you're in that category, you don't feel happy about yourself because you're wearing skinny jeans and you can't lift more than, one of our, female peers who can, do a snatch test or do the Iron Maiden challenge, well, then maybe motivate yourself to do something about it. So.
Right. Well, we're definitely on a upward trend thanks to some of your work, and I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said earlier, it's no small endeavor. No. It's sort of becoming, it sounds like a lifetime of work.
It is. And just to wrap it up quickly, the delays in time is because I'm not doing any kind of crowdfunding campaign, because that's what I would need to do this full time and release it faster. But I have a wife, I have a kid, I have, several streams of income that I have to manage. So things get allocated. I work 80 hours a week, so I don't have to work 40, right? So that's the whole process. So,
well, thank you so much, Philippe. I really appreciate your time and you sharing your knowledge and expertise with everyone, and giving you the mic to talk about your method with the natural method and how everyone can really benefit regardless of what their activity is and what their current ability level is.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philippe.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.